Today, we talk about... All right, so welcome back, guys. Episode, still don't know what number we're on. We're way backlogged. I mean, yeah, because I'm backlogged as fuck right now, okay? With that said, we have a special guest. Again, introduce yourself, my man.
Yeah, my name's Ken. I'm chilling in this apartment here in the penthouse with these two goons right now. Write poetry. You can catch me on Instagram at Towne Jr. That's K.TOWNE.JR.
Swoon.
Yeah, books out internationally. You can get on Amazon or my Etsy. Check it out. Other than that, I'm here to laugh with these guys.
Lately, I've been having a bunch of comedians on here. The difference here, it's a little nuanced, but you are not a comedian by trade. You are working, obviously, a regular job, if you will, which we can also talk about. But you also do poetry/writing. That's like your main thing, especially with your Instagram posts focusing mainly on poetry. But I would argue you are a comedian in hiding, if you will, because you are one of the funniest people I know.
Well, that's 100% correct. So I don't know how much I'm hiding, but like,
no,
I mean, like, I think like writing is like a fundamental skill. So like, I focused on using my skill set to draw out a certain emotion, which in my poetry is usually love or heartbreak or, trying to point something about like social constructs. But, that same skill set can be applied to comedy. And I think if you're smart enough and good enough with words, you can kind of like get any emotion out of people, right, whether it be emotional, love or, comedy or hate.
And I know you're that good because you got women tattooing your lyrics, if you will, on their bodies.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, I think we're at about, like 6 or 7 now. So,
really?
One more Horcrux and I'll have more than Baltimore. So that's the nerdiest reference I'll make all night, but I had to get it out there.
That's hilarious. Told you he's funny.
Look at Zach. He's already so mad. He's like, go get the racist shit.
He is so mad. But yeah, so actually let's talk about this since this is usually what I like to do here is talk about your comedian background, where you started, what you did. But in your case, when did you first start writing?
Ooh, I wrote a lot when I was younger in high school and stuff like that, just playing around.
Like for yourself?
Yeah, for myself.
Okay.
I mean, I think junior year, you went to the same high school I did, so we had Mr. Hayes. I enjoyed him as a teacher. You might have had different opinions, but
I loved him.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy.
Yeah, it's nice.
And it was nice, I don't think you would make a decision what you want yet. At least I hadn't at that point in my life. So, seeing him and seeing, oh, you can be an English teacher and a writer and kind of make a living. This guy was getting Teslas delivered to the parking lot because all his book money was coming in. I was like, you know what? That's a pretty cool lifestyle.
What's his book? What's Wrong with Lemons?
What's the Trouble with Lemons?
The Trouble with Lemons
was like his most famous one. Fucking yellow pieces of shit. No, but yeah, he was like a YA writer. He'd written like 3 or 4 books at that point.
He's a great teacher too. He just really
super chill
identify with people.
Yeah, and he was like, he meditated. He was like a big hippie and all that stuff. So, just seeing that he could be successful as a teacher, as a writer, as someone who grew up like real blue collar, dad was in the military. I was like, that seems like a really cool lifestyle and like outlet. Right. So, I kind of followed that path. Unfortunately, not professionally. Ended up in advertising, but so far on the side, making some money on the book, selling internationally, and the whole goal is to eventually get to that's my main source.
Also, don't discount. This guy is one of the best lacrosse players in upstate New York.
That's definitely true.
In our time, dude, he scored.
Section 2 All-Star.
He scored. We made playoffs for the first time in our high school career.
History, or at least 10 years.
History.
Like no one had
he scored against Bethlehem, which was like the number 1 seed because we were like the number
80th seed.
Yeah. See, he scored the first.
Yeah,
got the face off. Came down the field, but like 4 people on him. Boom. Scored.
Yeah, and
then we lost 20-1.
Right.
21-1. It'll always be great.
Yeah. Oh, 21.
Yeah. They had to get that extra one just to, it was fun.
Yeah, they're like, it didn't even count.
Yeah, I love
it was kind of funny though. Like, you line up against the best team in the league.
Oh, it was great.
The kid who was taking the face off against me was the best kid to ever come out of Section 2 in like 8 years. And he gave me the net. He was like, good luck. I was like, you good luck. I just took it, nailed it. Everyone's hyped, everyone's screaming, and then we just got railed.
Well, it sucked too because you were such a big influence on lacrosse in high school. Like he literally got people to join the team. He got me to join the team. Like he got people to join the team.
We wouldn't have had one, yeah.
It sucks because our first win as a team.
I was out of the country.
You weren't even there.
I was drunk in Italy.
We're like, yo, Ken, maybe you're the problem.
Yeah, which sucks too because you look back, you're like, yo, leading scorer, captain, all this shit, and then I leave and they win this fucking scrubby game in a snowstorm. And everyone's like,
Ken, you suck.
What was it, like a trip abroad or something?
Yeah, I was at Italy. I was in Italy for spring break, so it was like me and the problem was it was me and several other seniors and juniors on the team.
Wait, they were having games during spring break?
Yeah, I got
it was a couple weeks long trip in Italy, right?
No, it was only 10 days. So I
yeah,
think,
yeah. It was
so
like right when they got back.
But spring break is, we might have left on like a Thursday and that game might have been Friday, but lacrosse always is spring break. That's the only spring break I've ever taken because high school, college, I always had to practice. You weren't allowed to leave. When I went on spring break, Brennan was like, all right, no one vote for Ken for captain because he's going away on spring break and fuck that guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, you wouldn't have a job if I wasn't on this team.
We literally won that one game for the first time we've ever won in Troy history.
Yeah, and Gerard like made the front page of the newspaper. Like, I fucking hated this kid.
Yeah, but we were just
Why? Who's Gerard?
Some kid.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Why?
He's fine. He's fine.
Why?
He's
Because he
just, like,
scored
fine.
the goal or something? Or
Yeah, he's an attack.
Oh, okay.
So he was his backup.
Got it.
And he scored a couple goals.
I think like
But we were all just like busting our Kevin.
Oh, bro,
As soon as Kevin leaves,
played like 3 years, every game, starter, this, captain, and they were just like, we're only going to win one game, you can fuck off. Like,
yeah. Well, we were like, oh, we won. And Ken wasn't here. Huh.
Interesting. I'm like, I don't know if that's quite a cause and effect kind of thing, but
No, it definitely is.
yeah.
No, it's not. It was not. It was something.
Correlation is not causality,
Yeah.
guys. Fuck you.
That's what drove you to start writing.
Yeah, started writing. I just I went home after everyone said that. I just started like writing poetry about my sadness. You know, it's turned into several $1,000s. So thank you.
Hey.
There you go.
Yeah, so the book you just put out recently is your first official published book.
Yeah,
right?
correct.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I've been super lucky. My book's called Modern Fairy Tales. The kind of poetry I like to think is a little bit different than a lot of stuff that's out there for anyone who follows like Instagram poetry and things like that. Someone will just like write a sentence and then put it on Instagram and be like, put their name after it. And I'm like, not that I haven't done that, and that's kind of where some of my tattoos come from, but I actually like the classic styles. I like rhyming a little bit. I like a little bit more length in some of my work. So what I really wanted to do is, take modern poetry in the way that I saw it and apply it to traditional things like fairy tales and the feelings that you get from those kinds of stories that we grew up as kids, and kind of merge like my adult life and my childhood life in this like, living in New York City and walking down these alleys with all these people. It seems very bleak and very concrete, but the whole point of my book, and you'll read this in the intro, is, if you know where to look, if you take the time to look, there's magic that you can find everywhere in the world, whether it's in the back alley or in an experience. So that whole concept is what modern fairy tales is like all about.
Yeah, I was going to say, because anytime I talk to comedians, or even myself, I'm like starting to look for the funny. So do you feel like whenever you're walking the streets, you're just looking for the beauty of the poetic influence? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both. I would definitely say I've been here for like 3 years now, and it's definitely started to wear down on me a little bit, the like poetic soul and all that stuff. When you work 60-hour weeks in advertising on the subway, when they're long winters, that definitely, the edges get scrubbed off a little bit, but there are definitely times where I'm like, I'm in a particular mood, or I'm trying to get in a particular mood on a weekend or a night that I'll, set the scene or go for a walk and try to like find that poetic inspiration. It was much easier when I lived in like the mountains in Pennsylvania. You just walk outside and everything was beautiful. Now when there's like a homeless man taking a shit outside my door, still writing worthy material, but not.
I was going to say, I challenge you to write a good excerpt from it.
Yeah. There's been some subway poems, but the material is it's more depressing than it is inspirational.
What are your
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, I'm curious because you said fairy tale. So, like, what fairy tales do you like?
I actually
And why?
Yeah, no, fair question. I like twisted fairy tales a lot as an overarching genre. When people take super traditional fairy tales, especially like the Disney ones, and like put a dark spin on them or a new spin on them.
Well, like the Brothers Grimm.
Like the Brothers Grimm is good, but I mean more like Peter Pan is a very traditional Disney fairy tale where it's like there's this guy and he brings these children and he's protecting them, and Captain Hook and everyone's
Michael
like,
Jackson.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, this is like a cool concept. But the original story of Peter Pan, if you go all the way back to it, is like he would abduct children, recruit them to his army to fight his enemies, which were like the pirates. And when they got too old, he would just kill them, which is why no one ever grew up in Neverland.
Well, most of the fairy tales usually have like
super dark.
Yeah,
super dark.
that's the
like,
Brothers Grimm and stuff.
Red.
It's all
Red Riding Hood, like all that,
Yeah.
like Cinderella, all that stuff. Snow White, like she was like enslaved by the dwarves. So Disney really puts a spin on it. I like going back to the original versions, but I also like when modern writers take fairy tales and kind of twist them in a new way and bring them into like the foreground. So. I guess in our generation, if you want to consider things like, Harry Potter or Hunger Games fairy tales, because they're fantasy stories and stuff, I really enjoy those kinds of things as well. So, it's, it's across the board. But I have to say, Peter Pan's one of my favorite ones just because I like the concept of never growing up. Like, yeah, stealing children. Yeah. Flying is also super cool. Plus, you see how he looks in that little leaf skirt, boy?
Yeah, Captain Hook, which he looks like.
Oh.
Captain Hook.
Oh, I look like Captain Hook?
A little bit.
Yeah.
with a red shirt on.
He wears a red shirt.
Bro, if you had a hook on your hand, you'd
Yeah.
be like 50% of the way there.
Wait, what's your favorite fairy tale?
Fairy tale? Does Disney movies count?
He's like
Almost exclusive.
Aladdin.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Aladdin's a classic.
Yo, Aladdin actually is.
But that's not a
Aladdin's
fairy
amazing.
tale, right?
It's actually one of the better.
Is it technically a fairy tale? Is
Yeah.
it part of the 1001 Arabian Nights
No.
tales?
Yes.
It is,
No.
right?
Yeah. Okay, so
Is you
the
take?
basis of Aladdin comes out of the 1001 Arabian
Right,
Nights.
comes
tale.
out, but Aladdin's his own thing.
Aladdin is
Aladdin's
its
a
own thing, but like
precursor
that's
to
where.
1,000 Arabian Nights.
So 1000 Arabian Nights is a much older story than Aladdin.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like a precursor. It's just
No,
like it's
well,
a
in the
related
timeline
story.
though, because Aladdin joins the 1,000 Arabian Nights.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it's like again, all those stuff are based on like way older stories that are usually way darker to teach kids lessons. Like I think even the original Santa Claus and all that stuff. Like if you misbehave, like Santa Claus
Yeah,
like,
Krampus.
took you out. Yeah, like
Yeah.
really dark, like ghoulish kind of things. So we really
Well, that's why. Yeah, I mean, most of fairy tales were German, to scare kids.
yeah. And Germans are super fucked up. I
Also,
should know.
and
I'm half
good
German
code.
myself. Like we do a lot of terrible shit, man.